I'm fascinated by things, technology, AI, all this other stuff, but deepfake.
I'm a gadget guy. That is cool stuff, and it's scary stuff.
Yeah, but how does that tie into legal issues?
Oh, good segue. Well, tonight we're talking about revenge porn and what that means, and how the law is not caught up with these deepfakes. So there could be a deepfake of you circulating as we speak that you had nothing to do with.
I know. Well, I just hope they make me look better than I actually do.
Well, then there's probably not going to be a complaint to the police, right? So,
no.
But otherwise,
I'd probably applaud.
Scary stuff. No, it's scary stuff.
But so let's explain what's revenge porn.
So revenge porn basically falls under the criminal code. I'll read the section because people always want to know the wording of it. So section 162.1 sub 1 of the code says...
In Canada,
everyone who knowingly publishes, distributes, transmits, sells, makes available, or advertises an intimate image of a person, knowing that the person depicted in that image did not give their consent to that conduct, or being reckless as to whether or not they gave their consent, is guilty of an offense. Let's describe, though, what that image equals, because I've had clients asking me, what's an intimate image? It's a very narrow definition. So 162.1 sub 2 says, an intimate image is defined, so it's a visual recording of a person made by any means, including photographic or video recording, where the person is nude, exposing his or her genital organs or anal regions or her breasts, or is engaged in explicit sexual activity.
Why just her? Sorry, they didn't say exposing their penis.
No, it did. Interesting. It's all about that gender stuff you were talking about.
On a previous...
Right.
On many
previous episodes. And at the time of the recording, there were circumstances that gave rise to a reasonable expectation of privacy. You weren't expecting this to be on Pornhub tomorrow once it was filmed.
Actually, thinking about it, they did say genitals, so I guess that covers penis.
Yeah, that should, I hope.
But...
unless there's something else we don't know
given
about.
That definition is kind of interesting because it said exposing theirs. So what if you Photoshop somebody's head on somebody else's body? You're not exposing that person's...
Well, that's the
body.
problem. That's the problem Taylor Swift has been having. A number of celebrities are now facing where they're finding themselves on the internet naked, right? And it's not
actually their body.
It's not actually their bodies.
So legally
the law
is just their face that was posted.
Right. And legally, the law is not yet caught up to this type of, revenge porn.
To be fair, in the past, when people photoshopped a face, you can kind of tell it's a Photoshop face.
Yeah, it was pretty crappy
but
photoshopping. They've gotten much better.
They've gotten so good now, you actually can't tell. And in fact...
you don't see the neck.
And in fact,
lines.
they could put your face on a pornographic moving image now.
Right.
And it would be almost indetectable.
Right.
So in terms of privacy...
yeah.
You know, it's your face, and your face is your identity,
right?
Essentially, but it's not actually your body. So how is that posting an intimate image of? Because typically, revenge porn was taking an actual picture of a real person and then taking that picture and disseminating it to other people or posting it on the internet, and that's literally a picture of you.
Well, that's a gap we have now. The law is not caught up with this scenario, the Taylor Swift scenario. In Canada, the law is always behind technology, as we know. But especially with this now, a few countries have started. So in the UK, they've criminalized the sharing of deep fakes as part of their Online Safety Act. I think in British Columbia, there's a provincial legislation called the Intimate Images Protection Act. But we're not quite there yet with fake intimate images online. So that's the gap right now. That's problematic.
So we have some cases in Canada. There's 2 cases in Canada that have to do with revenge porn, just to clarify the seriousness of the issue. Because it is a very serious issue.
It is. It's humiliating. People kill themselves over this stuff.
They do.
Right?
And so one of the first cases in Canada had to do with a young girl named Rehtaeh Parsons who was involved in some sexual activity with 2, I believe, I don't think it was more than, it was 2 people, and they recorded the sexual activity and then shared it with other people at school. And primarily in that case, as with the other one, it was girls at the high school that then got a hold of the images and then made it go viral, like spread it to everybody, right?
And that's part of the problem with the Crown's case. I've had one of these cases where, they did their photos, whatever, the little video clips, and somehow got shared, but no one knew who shared, how shared. So the Crown's case isn't the easiest in terms of proving the origin and delivery of these images.
So, but legally, don't you think? Because typically the only people who get charged is the original person who shared it. So let's say one person has an image and they said had a great time, and they send a video or a photograph of their evening to a friend. Then that friend takes the image and disseminates it. But it's the original person who shared it who gets charged. But the secondary people
typically not.
Don't get charged.
Typically not.
Right? So there was the Rehtaeh Parsons case, and so some legislation passed on that. It was a fairly notorious case in Canada. And then there was the very sad case of Amanda Todd, who was being coerced into sharing intimate images by somebody who met her online and threatened to disseminate the images unless she provided more photos. And then the person ultimately did share them with everybody in the school. But then the people in the school then took a great thrill of it and then started sharing more and bullying her.
Oh, it's a horrible case. Yeah.
So, and again, at what point do we decide that revenge porn is not just about the original one? At what point does secondary sharing become
the
criminal?
Distribution? Yeah, exactly.
And should it, or should, as criminal defense lawyers, we generally don't want people charged. But if a crime's committed, I kind of have the view, maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but I kind of have the view, it's like, why just this person? Why not all the other ones, right?
Depends on the knowledge of the secondary group, right? Like if you're sharing porn, you don't say who it is. The person who receives it, they don't know potentially who it is unless it's a very small circle, right? So as far as they're concerned, this is just anonymous porn being shared. Again, it goes back to the Crown's case and what they can prove. And
then again, we're looking at what if you take somebody's face, somebody you don't like at school, right? Yeah. And it could be a female who does this because they're very vicious that way, right?
No such thing as mean girls. Come on, Diana.
I grew up with the Queen Bees. I know exactly what they do.
She knows who the mean girls are.
So, they take, anybody takes somebody's face and puts it on a thing and then disseminates it around the high school, right? Because this tends to be high school behavior.
Of course.
And then they just like laugh and they share it on social media and all this other stuff. You don't see those charges being laid.
No, because they're tough cases to prosecute, right? From the Crown, like the case I had, the Crown was quite honest in that, look, the complainant doesn't want to go through a trial. She doesn't want these images being used as exhibits in a public courtroom, right? Regardless of whether they're sealed or not. So it's like almost like, being punished twice.
But, of course, if the charge is based on the images have to be presented in court.
Right.
So here's an interesting question. I always think everything I say is interesting, so
especially when you respond to yourself.
Which I do quite often.
Exactly.
What if you share an intimate image because somebody's gone and accused you of having non-consensual sex, and then you happen to have a recording of it? So the reason you share it is for self-defense.
Right.
So the person's to set the scenario up.
Right.
Somebody's not criminally charged.
Right.
They're being accused of something in their social spheres.
Right.
And so they share an image to say, no, this is totally consensual. Here's the proof. It's kind of a self-defense thing, right?
Exactly.
But the sharing of the image could then be called revenge porn.
Well, it depends who you're sharing it with. If you're sharing it with your buddies at the bar, yeah. If you're sharing it with a Crown attorney who you're making the complaint to, or a police officer, that's a different bucket of fish, I'd say.
Well, don't you think, we call it revenge porn, don't you think the word revenge has meaning?
Yes.
So the reason for sharing it should be a motive of revenge, right?
Right.
Where typically revenge porn is somebody gets broken up with.
Right. That's the classic scenario.
So somebody gets broken up with, and then they say, oh, you know what? You're going to diss me. You're going to make me feel bad about myself. I'm going to shame you. Right?
Right.
So that's revenge.
Yeah.
Right?
Total shaming process.
So let's take out the word revenge then. Posting public images of somebody, sexual images of somebody.
Non-consensual pornography.
That's not revenge-based.
Right.
So then what's that?
Non-consensual pornography. There doesn't have to be an element of revenge to it.
Well, pornography is not illegal.
No, but if it's disseminated under these terms without the other person's consent, then you have problems.
We still call it revenge porn. It's just the
I
typical
know.
phrase.
It is. It's
But-
convenient.
Yeah, I know.
It's convenient to call it revenge
You know,
porn.
interestingly, there was a fascinating case in Canada in which a judge, I'm trying to remember, it's a prairie province, I think it was Manitoba, her partner posted naked images
I
of
remember
her.
that one. Yeah.
And, it was a sort of, without going into detail,
Yes.
she ended up being removed from the bench, even though she did not consent to those
Right,
images being
right.
published.
Right.
It was, it's an interesting case to support the revenge porn laws.
And the other problem
And it failed her.
Right.
She got removed from the bench, even
Right.
though she had not consented to these images being taken, being published. Well, maybe being taken, but not being published for sure.
And then you get into the whole he says, she says. The whole consent thing rears its ugly head. Well, I'm in this photo. It's you and me. You said I could share this with our little group of friends, right?
Yeah. So, if you agree to one thing, how far does it go, right?
Right.
And, it's interesting because in one of the cases we mentioned, the person was aware that she was being filmed
Right.
and aware that the photos were being taken, did not object to that at the time it was being done.
The other interesting exception we found, remember we were prepping for this, that if it's a live stream, that doesn't count. That's not an image. So the guys who were having their way with the woman at a party and live streaming it through FaceTime, that did not fall under this section.
Yeah, I mean, there are some exceptions. There was like a crazy case where there's a live stream of them carrying a girl around who is passed out, right?
Right.
So giving consent has meaning.
Yeah, it does.
Right?
Just a bit.
Like the person has to be coherent and has to be capable of giving consent to something.
But where do you think this is going to go with the deepfake stuff?
Well,
How do you regulate that? How do you control? How do you prove that?
deepfake, I think people are concerned about, the advancement of technology for a number of different reasons, not just to do with sexual assaults and things like that. But there is a big concern about deepfake because anybody can be made to be looking like they're saying anything.
Exactly. Well, as
And
you showed me before this podcast.
And Tucker Carlson apparently has a lot to say about, it was fantastic, about Lord of the Rings. You should go look up the Tucker Carlson deepfake of Lord of the Rings.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't him, physically.
No, but the voice.
But
It
the
just showed you
voice.
the extent of the technology now.
Yeah, and anybody can be made to look like they're, sound like they're saying anything, look like they're saying anything. You can even put their face on it. So now we're getting into territory about, let's think about this for a second. When you put evidence into court in a criminal defense, and you say, "Oh, I've got this, evidence," how much are we going to have to authenticate it now?
Well, exactly. Well, my clients are already asking me these questions when there's text messages involved. They're saying, she could have photoshopped that text message where I allegedly threatened her. How can they prove that's a real text message?
Well, we talked not too long ago about a case where somebody had actually created an account and made it look like
Right.
the accused person. She ended up being convicted
Yes.
of making a false report and stuff because they ended up tracking it all down. They did great police work and tracked down these messages to show that she had created them and tried to make it look like the other person had created them. So, we could get into this territory.
Well, I think
What's
we're going
that
to
gonna
have
mean?
to.
What's that going to mean?
The
in
Crown
terms
is
of-
going to have to get... So when we make these disclosure requests with respect to text messages, underlying metadata to prove this is an actual text, right? There's going to be a lot of more resources the Crown's going to have to put into this if we're going to push them to the wall.
Well, quite often, like the text messages that are submitted by either side are legitimate. It's I haven't come across any. No, we did come across one case where it wasn't so much that the texts were faked as they were severely edited.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's kind of slow technology. We're going to get way more sophisticated now. And the fact that there was this individual who was able to create a fake phone number and make it look like the accused had sent all these messages to her harassing her, when in fact she was harassing him, it's a big warning sign.
It is. And that was old school technology. That was not sophisticated tech being used there. Some spoofing, right? An email account. That was not fancy technology.
So right now, Because we actually recently, Joseph and I had a case where the authenticity of a document was questioned, right?
Yes.
Ultimately, you can generally just put the document in and say, the guy or woman or whatever can testify to say, this is the document I received in such and such a way, and their testimony will then authenticate it, right? But I think authenticity is going to become a bigger issue.
Huge. Well, I had one trial where the client was saying, how can they prove that's me texting her? Wasn't me, for example.
Wasn't me.
Wasn't me. I didn't text her. Maybe I was at a bar. Maybe a friend as a prank texted her, but I did not send that text. How are they going to prove it was me?
So, there are ways to authenticate. It's easier this is the problem. It's easier for the Crown to authenticate messages because
they control them.
They have the resources
phone,
of the government.
Right.
Whereas, if the defense has to authenticate everything.
God. I think it costs us $2,000 or $3,000 just to have an expert look at a cell phone.
To authenticate it. And then you might have to call the expert to testify if they want to go that far. Right?
And the dollar signs keep going up.
So it costs the defendant to authenticate. It costs the defendant a whole ton of money.
Uppercase S.
But the Crown, you and me are paying for it because we're taxpayers, right?
Right.
You pay your taxes, I assume.
I hope so. Yeah.
Right. So we're paying for the Crown to authenticate stuff, whereas our clients have to personally pay to authenticate their own messages. So how's that fair?
It's not. But do you think the extent of all this AI, this deep AI all this fake stuff is going to water down the significance to people? Like you were joking earlier, I don't care if there's a picture of me floating around there.
My channel would go through the roof.
She's like, any attention is great attention. No,
they could Photoshop my body on some old hag or something like that. Yeah, maybe the opposite.
It's just becoming so easy to the point of ridiculousness, this stuff, right? I know, like, obviously it's painful.
Well, it's, the problem is, the reason I love the law is based on logic, reason, and prove it to me on paper, right? And so now, these principles are being challenged, I think, because
big time.
You can present paper, you can present a video, but it might be fake,
right?
And that I'm old enough to say that wasn't possible in the past, but this is a big problem. You can go into court and you can find yourself being presented with video that you've never, you could find yourself having sex with somebody. You were never in the room,
right?
But your face is on there and it looks like it's happening,
right?
And you're just like,
wasn't me.
How do you prove it wasn't me?
Witnesses? No. Experts.
There's almost never any witnesses.
Well, no,
right?
It's going to be. We're going to have to take it to a next level with the experts, and they can analyze these videos. Max would know this with all his video expertise.
I don't know.
Max, don't let me down. No, but this video, the AI stuff, it can be detected. Not saying it's easy, but you can detect deep fakes.
So now, to separate out from deepfake and revenge porn, revenge porn is insidious.
Yes.
It is a horrible thing to do to somebody. It haunts them. It's caused people to commit suicide.
It's nasty business.
It is the nastiest thing you can do to somebody. I mean, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? That should be the principle. Like, when you get intimate with somebody, there should be some trust there. And, the idea that somebody can do that to somebody else, anybody who's done it should feel like absolute shit. Right. That is a horrible thing.
It is.
It is. They deserve to suffer as much as their victim, really. But the reality is, when it's out there on the internet,
it's too late.
It never goes away.
No, it's done.
And people need to understand before they do this to somebody else, have a little compassion. Think about how would you feel, right? That is a horrible, horrible thing to do to anybody. And I've had it threatened against me before. And, and I just powered through it. And I'm just like, go ahead.
Knock yourself out.
Have your day.
Yeah. Enjoy. Send me a few glossies.
Yeah, right. And whether they had it or not, like, I'm not even going to say, because I don't even believe they had it.
Right.
But it was the threat, right? And, that is, once something goes on the internet, it's there forever. And, it is very serious for us to figure out how to adapt to the world of the internet. to protect people's privacy, their dignity, and to understand the damage done to somebody. And you know, we've seen this before with like these horrible instances of children who've had child pornography made of them, and then those pictures are disseminated. Like
It's a different
it's
level.
Horrendous.
Yeah,
and
that's-
then those children know that those pictures are out there and being shared, and you know, it's absolutely hideous to do this to somebody.
Yeah, that's next level
So,
hideous.
so you know, given that we're talking about like deep fakes and all this other stuff, the reality is there's real revenge porn out there, and it's horrible.
It's
and I
out
don't want to, I don't want to downplay the seriousness of that.
No, it's out there. It's
It should be a
happening.
crime. It should be a crime.
It should be a crime because, you know, we live in the Instagram generation
Yeah.
now, so they're snapping pictures of everything left, right, and center, including this stuff, right?
But now we have the problem with deep fakes, whereas like, and then it's the question is like, you know, if you want to make fun of, you know, there's all kinds of things that have been going around for ages where people Photoshop somebody's head on something else and make fun of it.
Yeah, but I think deepfakes it's a higher level right now compared to these, you know, snowflakes or millennials, whatever you want to call them, taking nudie shots of themselves in their bedrooms, right? That's a different world. That's like a common currency
It's like
now.
a white woman's Instagram.
Something like that. It's common currency. It's easy. You know, they change their Snapchat setting to disappear in 20 seconds. Oops, I forgot. You know, that's one level. But this Taylor Swift, what she's experiencing with the true deepfakes, that's scary stuff.
And well, not just Taylor Swift, but it's happening all over the place. You know, where you can find your face, you know, you can find yourself doing all kinds of things you've never done. And, you know, I think this is going to be a really interesting challenge for the criminal legal system to figure out how to address it. And then also figuring out liability. Because at what point can you say something's a parody?
That and prove I disseminated this. You know, as we know, there's so many ways around on the internet if you truly want to cover your tracks.
Yeah, and then there's the question of like, you share something, some sort of funny deep fake that you did with a friend, and then the friend disseminates it. It's like,
Right.
Then who's liable, right? So, you know, it's going to be very interesting to see how we adapt to new technology.
I'm not worried for myself.
I've pretty much gone off social media because this is like, it makes my life so much more peaceful.
It really does. It really does. Ready? Okay.
Ready?
Shouldn't we have done this at the beginning?
Oh,
I don't know. We lost track, I think.
Well,
do your pillow talk thing because it's beside you.
it's your pillow. You take it.
That was almost coercive control as per our previous episode. Don't forget to
Like, comment, subscribe, and share.
thank you, folks.
We do look at the comments and
Yes,
tune
we
in every
do.
Sunday night at 8 p.m.
As we do. Thank you.